Hello, hello, Peter.
Yeah, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. We're happy to
Good.
have you as a guest on our show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll start kicking things off with a little
Yeah.
bit of a story about yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I have been in the fitness industry for a little over 30 years, and my journey into what I'm doing now in the peptide industry brought me to that avenue naturally, being in the fitness industry and everything else, and seeing the benefits of peptide therapy for people being medicine 3.0 as opposed to medicine 2.0. My story is actually twofold. I had actually rolled my ankle and torn an Achilles tendon. And in doing so, it wasn't a total tear, it was a partial tear. I used a peptide called BPC 157, which actually healed my Achilles tendon in 2 months.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. I'm blown away. So I was like, I
Yeah.
got to get into this peptide world.
Mhm.
So then I was insulin resistant because of COVID and everything else. I was so frustrated and literally depressed. I didn't realize it because I was 230 pounds. I'm only 5'9", and I
Mhm.
could get to 220 with all my tricks in my bag, right? Of 30 years of fitness, right? I figured I could figure this one out, and it wasn't happening. So,
Uh-huh.
because basically what it is that people don't realize is when you're insulin resistant, it doesn't matter what kind of diet, what kind of weight training, or anything you're doing, because your body is in constant fight or flight. So every time you eat something, it
Mhm.
stores it. So I had to control that. And the only way to
Mhm.
control that is through controlling your insulin level through your pancreas so it doesn't spike when you eat. There's a peptide out there called tirzepatide. Semaglutide was the first version, tirzepatide is the second version. And I was like, I want the better version, so I'm gonna go for that. So
Right.
I treated myself for my 52nd birthday and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna lose this weight. So I got on it, did all my normal protocols for working out and my eating regimen. And I lost 45 pounds in 4.5 months.
Wow.
And yeah, I just turned 53.
Mhm.
My biomarkers are as if I was 30. When I talk about the peptide world really being medicine 3.0, to me, it really is. You can get ahead of a lot of things, Bradley, that are maybe affecting you now in a smaller way or could affect you down the road. In that little bit of a nutshell is how I got into the peptide industry.
Okay. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
30, 30 years in the fitness world is no joke. It reminds me of the time when I was younger. I used to take healthcare seriously, very
Mhm.
seriously. Like when I was in my teen years, I remember being in sports, working out, making sure I'm mostly eating healthy. And right now, as I'm 30 years old, and I like when I moved to United States, my meal plans and everything changed. I was just like going with the flow, right? Whatever's on the table, take
Right.
it in, consume it. Never started losing attention
Hmm.
on health, right? And eating healthy and all that stuff. And oh my God, right now, 30 years old with 228 pounds is a crazy trip. And I started noticing some changes basically on my health.
Right.
I don't have the same energy and pace as I used to have in my 20s. Because
Yeah.
this kind of reflects me back to the time when I used to work for an Amazon when I first moved to the United States as an Amazon delivery driver. And they would give us heavy routes. And I would look at my routes and I'd be like 60, 170 stops. No joke for me. That's easy. That's nothing. And I'll be carrying, I think, yeah, this was during the time of the pandemic. And I remember like you're carrying treadmills, you're carrying all the heavy
Oh,
equipment. But for
right.
me, it's like nothing because I'm in my 20s. I'm rolling, I'm going. And then as I'm slowly creeping into my 30s, Peter,
Mhm.
start feeling that weight
Yeah.
because again, I'm just eating on the go, barely time to rest. And then as time went by, and now I'm switching from that point of Amazon to doing my business and starting my own business and learning and all that stuff, I was telling my girlfriend all the time, I'm noticing I get tired very quickly. Back then, I could do 160, 170 stops within a day, no problem.
Mhm.
But as I got into my 30s and not paying attention to my health, it started changing on me. It started creeping in whereby I start feeling tired and exhausted as soon as I'm done with 50 to 60 stops. So when you explained that part about during your time whereby you had the ankle problem, it made so much sense and helped me reflect on how much people in general barely pay attention to our health and look for the health opportunities, peptides, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, and the reptide, and we don't pay attention to it. And by the time we realized it, we were like, when did I start this sooner?
Ver
Basically.
And I think that's the big deal. There are a lot of people out there that have this fatigue that you talk about, and it's a little unexplainable, but I have some very good friends that are in a TRT business, which is testosterone replacement therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And what the studies are finding out is that as you get older and you're leaving your 20s, even
Uh-huh.
at 30, your levels of testosterone can drop dramatically. And then subsequently, every 5 years, they drop another certain percentage. So you've seen the hokey commercials, eugenics and all this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff, testosterone, whatever.
Right.
They're just trying to sell you something that really doesn't work. You know what I mean? The message is good, but what they're giving you, it's not going to help you the way a real TRT professional is.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where the difference is between a TRT specialist and a doctor, really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So normal range for a male is if you went into your physician and you
Mm-hmm.
got a blood test
Mm-hmm.
and it came back and you did a testosterone panel, hormone panel, and it said 321, which is where I was, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The doc said, "You're good." And I'm like, "No, I'm not good. I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. What? No, you're in the range. So as long as you fit in their range,
Mm-hmm.
they just check the box and then send you on your way. Whereas when you go to a TRT specialist, they want to optimize you. And,
Mm-hmm.
and and that's what I was looking for. Sadly, as we get older, listen, I can't do stuff I did when I was 30, but I'm still doing stuff that I can do in my 30s. And I think that's the difference. So when you go to an optimization place like a TRT place, they want to say, "Hey, Bradley, you're in like the low 300s. How would you feel better about being in like 8 or 900?" Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that sounds good. Although it's not necessary for peptide therapy to get blood work done,
Mm-hmm.
I do recommend it, just in general, like you said, right? So even if you go twice a year to get your blood work done, once
Mm-hmm.
every 6 months, going to the dentist, right? Everybody hates going to the dentist, but you need to because these are the only teeth you get.
Right. We passed the baby teeth.
Absolutely,
We're on
yeah.
the permanent stage now.
And this is the only life we have, Bradley.
Right.
It's not a video game. You don't get 3 marks on your wrist like Jumanji. You hit the nail on the head when you said, Pete, this is the last thing people take care of is their health. But it's the most important thing because
Right.
without it, you have nothing else.
Mm.
Everything else really just falls apart. Because if you don't feel well, how well can you perform in your life, in your relationships, in your job, and just being a good human being, the whole and the mental onset. So it really does cycle down. I would say to you is
Mm-hmm.
find a TRT specialist in your area, get blood work done, tell me you want a hormone panel, and look at your numbers and gauge it off of that because there's other things that you can look for as well. It can be that simple of a fix. And the same goes for women, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of women don't think that TRT therapy is good for them, but it actually is. So there are a lot of women that, at a testosterone level of 2 or 0 that I've met and have gone and got TRT therapy. And they're like, I feel amazing. My energy is back. I sleep better. My skin feels better. My hair is thicker like it was when I was younger. My sexual prowess has returned. I feel energetic again. I feel good about myself. Because at the end of the day, if we don't feel good about ourselves, it's going to be really hard to feel good about anything else around you.
That is
So,
very accurate, Peter, because
yeah.
here's the fun fact, right? I'm
Hmm.
30 years old, but I feel like I'm 50 or 60 years old right now. And I'm
Right.
like, there is no way like turning 30 is this much toll in my body.
Right. It shouldn't be.
You know,
No,
it should
no.
exactly. So when you just mentioned getting that blood work done and looking for a TRT specialist,
Hmm.
I for sure put that in my schedule because honestly, with you being honest, is
Yeah.
that I need that because
Yeah.
I've noticed so many changes and I'm asking myself 21 questions every day. I'm like, what happened? Am I cursed? What is going
Right.
on over
Yeah.
here? There's no way you're telling me turning 30 years old right now, you feel like you're in your 50s. You can barely even lift a spoon at this point.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So basically, those are some very wonderful, healthy insights you've just given me right there. And I'm going to take a huge note of that.
It's important because what happens too is we wait until a tragedy happens, right? Before we deal with it medically,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to getting ahead of it. So, perfect example, if you know that your parents had heart issues or there was heart attacks that are typical in your family, there are literally tests that you can go to your doctor and say, hey, listen, I've had a heart attack in my family. I want to see if it's hereditary. Can you run a test for that? If you have a history of cancer, you're going to want to know, hey, listen, am I showing any biomarkers for anything? Because you want to be ahead of it. Because
Right.
there are things you can do, there are things you can avoid. Hey, listen, if there's cancer in your family and it happens to be lung cancer, smoking is probably not a good option for you. A high pollutant area is probably not a good option to live for you.
Right.
So there are all these things that you can do ahead of time so that we can live this longer life and not suffer at the end of it. And I see so many people doing that. And it's sad because you don't have to be that way. And it takes one or two appointments a year with a medical professional or a TRT professional, if that's what you're looking for, in order to just basically have that life of yours turn back. You're 30 years old. There should be no difference between 25 and 30, energy wise, feeling nothing. You shouldn't feel 50. And by the way, I hope you feel like I do at 53 because I feel 30. So we got to get you straight. We got to get you back on point.
For sure. We're gonna switch things up a little bit. We're gonna
Yeah.
start with the first part of the segment, and it's the pretty much the daily grind, right?
Okay.
The everyday challenges. Can you share with us stories of how you deal with the everyday challenge or everyday grind, pretty much?
So I attend a lot of these events, entrepreneur events, and they'll have a speaker and they get up and they all do a spiel and it's really interesting. And my mental approach every day is let's see what today happens or let's see what happens today. Right. I'm not going to project anything. I'm not going to put anything. I worked on the daily grind of pivoting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like Bruce Lee said, take what's useful to you and discard the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out way by no way. You know,
Right.
because every day is different, right? Every day is
Right.
different. Some nights you get a good 8 hours sleep, you wake up and you're like, boom, I'm pumped, I'm energized. You like perfect example. Today's Tuesday. I thought it was Monday. Totally forgot. I was just in a holiday. So my thing is, my daily grind thing is I don't take anything personally. And that's what I've learned, whether it's a quote unquote rejection or it's somebody's having a bad day, they vocalize it towards me, or being that on social media big time now as Pete the Peptide guy, I get a lot of responses on people who are negative. And what I've learned is I'm not going to take on your stuff as in and make it mine because
Right.
that's really going to set me up to quote unquote not succeed for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I practice that probably every moment of every instrument. It's a constant. It has to be a constant. Yes.
I totally agree with you, Peter. Especially, I think this was like more of a learning lesson for me. Basically, when you mentioned not taking the energy and letting yourself learn through the challenges, it's more of a experience and a learning part you have to take to understand it and go with it, right? Why do I mention this? Is because I remember, and this always reflects back to my teen and my 20 years. It really reflects on that. Basically, we get up ready for the morning and pretty much we just suck in that negative energy in ourselves, right? It's, oh my God, all right, are Starbucks gonna have my coffee? Are they gonna this is basically that's how it is. And as you don't realize as you're reflecting that you're keeping it in your mindset,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And then the tough part I should say is that we have that problem of realizing that, oh my God, what we're thinking, we're actually showing. So like
Correct.
somebody reads your, either it's the energy or whatever the case is, they read it, they're like, yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
And then now you reflect on that as well, suck it in as well. And then at the same time, you start putting yourself down and start so much putting in your head and not paying attention, not keeping focus, not opening that room for you to learn and understand. And that is one of the key things right there. People mostly forget about, not just people, even me for
Yeah.
myself sometimes. And it's, I have to sit back. I'm like, no, we got to sit back for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Even meditation, something as simple as
Oh, yeah.
meditation, right?
Mhm.
Sit down, meditate. Hey, today there are going to be challenges, right? Okay, cool. But what are we going to do? We're going to learn from those mistakes or challenges or opportunities and create better opportunities
Right.
and move on forward. And I think I love how you mentioned the quote of Bruce Lee,
Oh, yeah.
because again, in martial art, I don't know, there are gonna be very few of us who have really watched Bruce Lee the first time we heard martial art.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's one of my heroes. So I know him in and out. Oh,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Basically, like it just reflects on a lot of lessons and stories and motivational quotes, especially from him, from Bruce
Yeah.
Lee himself, and motivational quotes in general. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Like I always tell myself every morning, you must go through the disaster before you become the master.
Yeah. I
And
like
it's
that.
and then
Mhm.
it's a very valuable thing right there because it says, hey, you gotta pass through the harsh times to really learn. And then that other one motivational quote, it says, smooth roads never made easy roads never made expert sailors, if I'm not mistaken. That one
Right. I
too. So
understand. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thankful you mentioned about motivational quotes.
Yeah. Because I think too is as human beings, once you realize that to a certain extent, we're all flawed. We're not perfect. And then once you stop looking for perfection in everything around you, and you can sit in your own self and say, hey, you know what? I'm just a human being. I make mistakes. It's okay. That's part of this life thing. You say something like, it was interesting is I'm a big movie fan too. And I was just watching this movie called Chef, and it's actually a really good movie.
Hmm.
But anyway, it's a gentleman who loses his restaurant and then goes across country with a food truck with his son from his estranged wife, and they make a bond, whatever. But the
Hmm.
kid is like really super good at social media, and he's blowing his dad up. And he basically makes a video, a 1 second video, and he pictures 1 second of everything of their entire trip, and he made it into an entire video.
Hmm.
And I sat back and I thought, and I said, isn't that interesting? I said, because seconds are all our life is made up of.
Right.
And if you try to look at a moment and it's so grandiose, but just focus on that 1 second that was great. You can find that every day. You can find 1 second every day that you're like, yes.
Hmm.
And you put those together every day, and
Hmm.
you'll wind up finding that you had an amazing succession of seconds that turn into minutes, then they turn into hours, then they
Right.
turn into days, right? Then
Hmm.
months, then years. Then you're having this life, and you're like, wow, it is about that second. It really is about being in that moment because
Hmm.
the start of our broadcast today is over. That's gone. That's in the past. We're in the moment right now
Right.
discussing what we're discussing. The only constant in life, and I tell a lot of people too, and only commodity, I believe, true commodity is
Hmm.
time.
Right.
Because once time is gone, you can't get it back. You can wish all you want. You can worry all you want, like you said, right? You could think
Right.
in your head, oh, I wish I was this. But then you get caught up in there.
Hmm.
And then it throws everything off around you. And
Right.
I think that's the hardest thing too, is for people to understand and being martial artists and loving that background and stuff like that,
Hmm.
is that it is a constant practice. There's no level of greatness. It just keeps going. You just keep getting better and you
Hmm.
keep getting better. And that's what you hope to do in this world, right? As long as we're here, is to be a better person and be a better human being to each other. Is there some way you can do that every day is to be a better person to yourself?
Right.
Then that is the most amazing thing you could do because you're gonna, like you said,
Hmm.
that other people are gonna see your joy in your face. The yesterday, Bill Walton died. He's 71 years old, and if you're familiar with him, basketball player, but
Hmm.
his whole philosophy, he smiled every time. And he said everybody who's ever met him said, whenever he came up to you, he goes, "Where's that smile?" They asked him, "How you doing, Bill?" And he said, "I'm doing wonderful. It's magnificent. I woke up this morning and I'm alive. This is what we have now. What's better than that? Nothing." You know
Right.
what I mean? All the other stuff is just, that's the gravy, but the waking up part, the being alive and feeling that, that's phenomenal. It really is. And it's so simple. And we take that for granted.
You are right. You are right for sure. Like again, we don't understand that in part of the learning curve, it's not a straight shot.
No.
It's those little things that happen every single time of our lives that
Yep.
later compact into big, right?
Yes.
And that's where
Right.
people lose the focus so many times. They're like, they put that as in themselves, like, oh, I was great because one, two, three, four, five, six, because family traditions or whatever the case is. I'm like, no, most of the time, 90% is the experiences you faced, right?
Yes.
whether you
Absolutely.
were alone or not, whether you had dad on the side, you had a
Mhm.
family friend on the side, or by yourself, those experiences
Yeah,
are what shapes you as you, basically. And these are, again, these are some wonderful
absolutely.
insights right here.
Yeah.
Now, we've spoken about little things like make us turn us into one whole being every single day. Now, in this next part of the segment, it's little joys, right?
Yeah.
We want to hear your story or personal stories on the things that give you little joys and happiness in everyday life or any challenges that you face.
So for me, being in the health and wellness field for so long, I always felt accomplished when my clients were able to do something that they couldn't do because it wasn't because of the physical aspect, but it was because the belief that I was able to instill in them they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't changed. That's my daily life. So today it's just pivoted a little bit to peptides.
Okay.
So whenever I speak to somebody and they're like, and they get peptides through my business and they're on them, and whether it's to lose weight or if it's to feel better or it's more energy, or like I said, it's to feel more sexual prowess or more muscle recovery, anti-aging, whatever it is. When they send me a message via text or I get an email or they post something and they're like, I'm now feeling like I always wanted to. Thank you. Like those are those little ones. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. It is literally just, hey, saying, you know what? I had a positive effect in somebody's life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the greatest thing. And to have that happen honestly on a daily basis is pretty awesome and pretty special.
It is. It
So
is.
those are my takeaways, but it's always been I'm no different than you. I'm no
Mm-hmm.
different than anybody else. My delivery might be a little different. I don't believe anything different than anybody else does. Maybe I believe in the power of giving of oneself in
Mm-hmm.
service to others, maybe a little more or a little more, I don't know, in depth. Maybe I'm a little more passionate. People said it
Mm-hmm.
like, when you talk, you're like so passionate. I'm like, because I believe in it. I believe to the point where it's like in my soul. So I guess when I can affect somebody like that to also to have a thought process change as well, because I've had it on the other end. So like I said, it's great to help people positively who are on board with me from day one. I enjoy even more as a person who challenged me a little bit and was like, I don't know about this.
Right.
And through conversation and educating them,
Mm-hmm.
educate about how this can help, and then trying it and then turning around and going, hey, you know what? You were right. This was the best thing I ever did. Thank you for giving me the knowledge base so that I could look into it and have this positive effect for me
Mm-hmm.
because
Right.
now I'm living a better life. Yeah.
You are absolutely right about that. You couldn't be more right than that. Because again, those kind of things not only gives you joy, but gives you more of that confidence
Yeah.
whereby you can pursue other things without too much of a fear into it. I'll give an example.
Mhm.
Basically, that stage when you move first to United States, they need to get to know better about you. They need to understand you better. So you cannot start way high, let's say get a corporate job or anything like that. You pretty much
Right.
have to start with something simple like working a simple small income job and then progress yourself up as you're
Right.
learning to go. And I remember I worked as a manager at Wendy's,
Mm.
and I do not know what the AGM saw in me. And she was like, Bradley, I want you to become a shift manager. And my mindset, I'm like, dude, I just started working for 2, 3 weeks. And already you're putting me on the spotlight like that, you know?
Right.
And she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, Bradley, it's time to go.
Right.
We gotta
Yeah.
move things. And I'm like very much concerned. I'm like, okay, I do not know what she saw in me, but let's do it. It's a learning curve. We'll make mistakes. The same mindset,
Yeah.
like we'll make mistakes or whatever the case is. So my first, my fourth day on training, I'm being trained as to become a shift manager. I remember one of the employees, she had some altercations with the GM or something when the GM was there. And she came to me and she was like, Bradley, I need to use the restroom because of the women situation she was having. And I was like, my dear, you don't even need to ask. Let
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
know. Just come to me and
Yeah.
let me know. Let me know and you go because I cannot stop you from that.
Mhm.
I was even surprised she was there at work. I could have been like, hey, for today, this problem is
Yeah.
happening. Just close down what you need to close down. I'll clear your part and go. I didn't know that was my first part whereby it showed the position of a leadership. That
Right.
was the first part. Now, the second part is doing those heavy shift times, the times whereby you call it rush hour, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
Rush hour. Everybody's panicking. I need this. I need
Mhm.
that. And I'm like, guys, don't worry. We got this. We got this. The next thing, I'm like moving around, helping out wherever I need. And there are some challenges. There are some mistakes I would make too, but I'm learning and I'm continuing the process. I never expected almost half of the crew, half of the crew by that time when I was a shift manager, A, looked up to me in a high note. That was one of the things.
Ew.
And B, they would always come to me for advice, whether it's work related or non work related. So those things, I was amazed. I was like, I didn't know that I am putting a positive impact on people
Right. Yeah.
until the moment that they would come and sit and talk to me and ask me different questions, leave alone personal, getting to know where I'm from and all that stuff. How do I
Mhm.
do this? I'm planning on going to college. Oh my God, I need this. I need to understand this. And that kind of gave me that moment of, oh my God, I never knew how much of a positive impact until the day when I left, when I was shifting to a different store. And they pretty much came and said, thank you for being part of our lives.
Yeah.
And that was the part where I was like, wow, these are because of those little things
Mhm.
I was doing, whether it's integrity, honesty, whatever the case is, I was like amazed. I was like, wow. So basically, it was kind of my learning process is stop focusing so much on this big picture or
Right.
this big
Yeah.
thing. Learn to live day by day. Just like Master
Yep.
Oogway told Poe, noodles don't noodles, basically. Remember that? Remember
Yeah.
that part? Me and my girlfriend played all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like you're so much focused on the past and the future, you're forgetting to live on the
Exactly.
present. That's another one. And I was like, wow. Do you relate to that? Pretty much.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've had similar roles in my life too. I've been promoted very quickly through personal training life and from to assistant manager to then general manager and
Mhm.
all these things and being my own boss and entrepreneur. But I think what it is, I never went out like yourself and then you don't go out and look to be a leader. You know what I mean? You
Right.
don't, what you do is you go out and you try to be the best version of yourself that you can be, which
Hmm.
is the best human being you can. And that is to show empathy. That's to show kindness. That's to show willingness to help. That's to
Hmm.
show willingness to be part of this community called humanity. And the perfect thing is the quote that Bruce Lee gives in that the interview where the guy says, "Do you consider yourself the Chinese or the Chinese American?" And he said, "I consider myself a human being. We just happen to be under God's sky and we just happen to all look differently.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're just all human beings." And if you
Correct.
can really relate on that such basic level,
Hmm.
then all the differences outside of everything else don't matter. Just it makes for such a beautiful connection with other people and other human beings that actually can innately feel that.
Right.
And then it brings joy. And that's what you did. You're able to give some clarity to what this life is like. What it is just, hey,
Right.
you didn't see an opportunity in it. You were just being you. And the
Correct.
opportunities found you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. Again,
Yeah.
it's like those unexpected moments, they teach us so much. Now,
Absolutely.
speaking about unexpected moments, we're
Mhm.
moving to the next segment, which is
Yeah.
unexpected adventures, right? Would love for you to share some fun and unexpected adventures you've experienced in your everyday life.
Oh, fun and unexpected are always when we have a bunch of dogs.
Hmm.
So fun and unexpected is when you're maybe not feeling your 100% and one of the dogs grabs you like your flip flop
Hmm.
and wants you to chase them with it. You know what I mean? And you totally
Right.
forget like what you were just thinking about wasn't so important. And that was actually really cool. You know what I mean? And brought a smile to your face and joy. And that's what animals are so much fun having in life, right? Like I said, unexpected joys are getting a phone call from somebody who found you, let's say on LinkedIn for all intents and purposes, right?
Hmm.
And perfect example, I had somebody reach out to me, pharmaceutical company, and they're like, "Hey, listen, we'd love to chat with you. We see what you're doing. It's really fantastic and everything else." And I'm looking around and like, "Who, me?" I'm like,
Right.
I'm nobody. You guys are a
Right.
multi-million dollar facility. I'm not a doctor. I'm not. They're
Hmm.
like, "You're Pete, the peptide guy, and we love how you say things, the way you say them, and the good work you're putting out there." So those are super flattering, and those are
Hmm.
super fun surprises that happen. And
Hmm.
then I think that's why I keep doing what I do,
Right.
because I'm not looking for that. They're just kind of coming out of the woodwork and the connections that I'm making and stuff. And it's fun to be a part of this whole venture, this whole thing we call life.
Mhm.
It really is. Yeah.
You're absolutely not wrong in that at all.
Yeah.
Again, speaking of dogs,
Yeah. Yeah.
my girlfriend has a dog. It's a pit bull Catahoula mix,
Uh-huh.
right? And I just like to tease and mess with her. I'm like the weapon of mass distraction. But honestly, the story behind this is that when I first met my girlfriend, she warned me. She was like, I
Mhm.
have a pit bull Catahoula mix, and she might be aggressive on you because A, of the territory part
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
cool, no worries. Luckily, I had my experience with dogs through my best friend called Tierra.
Uh-huh.
She has a different dog called Panda. And I had to learn that dogs in United States are not how like dogs in African countries are trained. In
Mhm.
Africa, most like Tanzania and other countries, is that when somebody has a dog, that's mostly a guard dog.
Right. Working
Right.
dog. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
Mhm.
like that dog, like usually they let the dogs out during at night for security purposes. So
Gotcha.
thieves and burglars do
Right.
not attack that area. So it like instinct this fear that every time I see a dog, it's like, oh snap, go
Yeah.
into that fight or flight mode or fear mode.
Mhm.
So with time, I learned how to manage it and keep calm. So now going to my girlfriend's dog, and the first time meeting her, she didn't bark or anything. She would just huff because we were going to the park, right?
Right.
And she was just that huffing stage. And then she would just be like, Roxy, calm down. Right, pretty much. So I was like, you know what? Let's try to make some friendships here. So basically, I'm asking my girlfriend what she the dog likes and all that stuff. And what I would do is that when we pass to either Good Times or Starbucks, at Starbucks, I'd get the pop cup.
Yep.
And then,
Puppuccino.
yep. And then at Good Times, I would get the power bender. It took her dog a week
Yeah.
to get along with me.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, right? It took her a week. And she
Oh,
was
yeah.
impressed. She was surprised. She was like, Bradley, my dog never gets along with people that quickly.
Oh,
It
you the
takes
treat
her.
guy.
Yeah,
You the treat guy. Yeah.
exactly. I know. I'm like, my dog usually takes months to years.
See, but this is what's insightful. What you did, which is super interesting, is
Mm.
you said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to make this work. So I have to find out how to reach an animal, right? A
Mm-hmm.
dog that
Yep.
I'm not familiar with, that's not familiar with me."
Right.
And you took the most basic logical way to get that connection
Mm.
was to associate you with fun time. So
Right.
it's, hey, Bradley equals treats. I
Right.
like that. That's what.
That's how mindset operates nowadays. Like basically, when I come in, she's all excited. Like she's
Yeah,
very excited to meet me. And again, like what impresses me is again, my girlfriend and her family was like, this dog got used to your boyfriend in just a week.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was shocking to them. At the same
Right.
time, I was just like, now I can walk with her. She'll listen to my
Yeah,
commands. And anytime this is the most interesting part, right? In the morning, she'll try to wake my girlfriend up because that's the mom.
sure.
If she doesn't wake up, guess where she's coming to?
Oh, yeah,
And
you.
then I
Yeah.
open my eyes
Right.
and I just see that face and the wiggling tail right there, excited to see me asking for food. So I'll wake up
Right.
and then make her food. And it's just that moment, like I was never expecting to get
Yep.
along with the dog that quickly. And now
Oh,
we're
yeah.
like buddies pretty much,
Yeah.
basic. And it's
Yeah.
just interesting.
But again, you had the insight to say, okay, how do I manage this relationship? And I have to
Hmm.
find a way to make a connection, and you did it. And it's no different than any other situation.
Right.
You figure it out.
Exactly.
Or you
Exactly.
just look at you just to start with one at a time, and then you
Hmm.
do the math and you keep going.
It's those
Yeah,
unexpected moments and adventures.
absolutely.
They give you
Without a doubt.
insights as well.
Yeah,
Right. They do
yes,
give you insight. So now,
absolutely.
since we've touched about unexpected moments and they bring great stories, now we're gonna move to community, right?
Mhm.
We want to understand or see or learn the stories about how important the power of community is to you?
So for me, it's been super invaluable since I am an entrepreneur
Hmm.
and business. So having community, having different communities as well. That's
Hmm.
interesting. And when I different ones in, so some are just social media,
Hmm.
some are person, some communities, like I have a community of my friends and family, but I have a community where a tight knit network of like-minded individuals. So basically entrepreneur based people that they get it.
Right.
And what I love about it is that the community is so cool because everybody just wants to help everybody. Nobody's selling anything to each other. No one's
Mhm.
pitching anything to each other. It's
Right.
like, hey, you know what? Bradley, what do you got? And it says, hey, this is what I have. And it's okay, cool. That might not be for me in my
Mhm.
world right now, but I do know somebody. You know, that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Actually, pretty true. You do have to know some stuff, but you know what?
Mhm.
You really pivot people to other people and help them connect
Right.
by knowing them, by building your community.
Right.
So for me, community is huge, but having a community, not just friends and likes, but a community of like-minded people that are all trying to go in the same direction with you. To
Mhm.
me, that's community. And that's what I really surround myself with. Again, in multiple areas. Like you can't have it all on social media. You can't always be on your computer on your phone. You got to get out and meet people.
Mhm.
You have to go to events. You
Right.
have to do speaking engagements, things of that sort. So community, for me, that's how it affects me and is super huge.
Very well.
Yeah.
You are right in the aspect of like how important community is, and
Oh yeah.
also the part that you just mentioned, how much we're so much. I'm not putting any negative part on technology. Technology has
Oh
been
no, no, no.
great, right?
Yeah.
But with the thing is that we forget ourselves to live,
Yes.
right? And being a human being.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. It's I was talking to my girlfriend about kids, how much the impact of iPads and tablets have on their lives. And I remember this video, it was posted on YouTube. Somebody was talking about how much, like, when you take the iPad or the tablet away from the child, you get this whole tantrum. And that was, for me, was a perfect example because it shows, okay, for the child, it's like the tablet and her are so one to the point, like, when there's no one of them, she can't breathe or something,
Right.
which
Yes.
is not the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It becomes an unhealthy relationship. And that's where, like I said, the being out in public and meeting people and getting to shake somebody's hand,
Hmm.
getting a to face,
Right.
communicating with. Unfortunately, I feel that's a lost art.
Mhm.
And we're unfortunately getting further and further away from it.
Right.
My generation and in the United States, outside the United States is very different.
Right.
But in the United States, I'd say my generation might be the last generation of really conversationalists
Hmm.
where we can go anywhere and know no one and leave having 30 people know us,
Right.
or as they say, 30 friends leaving the door.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that's an invaluable gift and skill that's not really taught anymore.
Right.
And it's really, you've lost it because as much as I enjoy seeing you on the screen right now,
Hmm.
I would love to be in studio with you if that were possible.
Right. Of
And
course.
that's, and most people though wouldn't even know how to handle that interaction. Like this is as comfortable and as intimate as they want to get with another person, a human being, is because they feel safe.
Right.
And again, it's what gets caught in your head.
Right.
And it's the overthinking. What if they don't like me? What if I say something wrong? What if I do all those things? And it starts building up in your head and it really prevents you from excelling at what you want to or need to excel at. That word fear really hits into everything. So that's how really the community really helps you actually disparage any of that fear, because I could speak to somebody who is a neuroscientist
Hmm.
and see, I have no background in that. I have a degree in biology, but at the same time as I have connections in that world
Hmm.
and groups that I can introduce them to because they're talking way over my head, that would help them.
Right.
And they're so thankful that I just didn't totally dismiss them because we weren't quote unquote connected, but we actually were. So we were just in a different way,
Right.
vice versa, because that actually comes back to you.
Mhm.
As I'm sure you've seen too, is when you give of yourself, there is a thing where it's like a boomerang. It comes back in a weird way, shape, or form. And I've connected so many people with this and this. And the next day I've gotten a phone call and says, hey, yeah, out of nowhere, I want to do business with you. I'm like, really? I'm like, where I'm from? karma, the universe, whatever you want to say.
Mm.
I think when you put it out there, it comes back.
Right.
You
It
know?
really does. It really
Yeah.
does. Again, it's that mindset of, hey, not going in there like I gotta sell to 50 people. No,
No.
let me go in there and get to know 10 to 15 and then proceed from there. Create that connection, that moment of opportunity.
Right.
Because even from some of my mentors, they say usually in the end you will talk about what your purpose is there for.
Yeah.
But if I'm not building a connection with you between the two of us, there's really no that flow, because later on, I'm pretty sure as you go back to your home or wherever you go back to, you're asking yourself, okay, today I talked to, let's say, Bradley.
Mhm.
What did I learn from Bradley? What ways did we connect? And if that part is not there, it's very tough for that person to say, okay, let me make this connection further.
Right.
Does this relate to you as well?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm at the age where I understand that I do not have to, nor do I want to work with anybody that I
Mhm.
don't like and don't connect with. And
Mhm.
I'll know within 10 seconds if we connect or not.
Right.
And if I'm okay to say, hey, listen, this isn't just going to work, but I appreciate it, but thank you. I think I've gotten to be very artful at it, and not in a harsh way, but always leaving off as, hey, listen, you're not for me, I'm not for you. But if I hear anything down the road, I'll definitely hit you up. And that's it. And then you walk away. You spend your time, as I tell people, don't spend your time spinning your wheels in the mud where it's not going to go anywhere,
Mhm.
because you're just beating yourself and you're hitting yourself in the head and not expecting to get a concussion. And that makes no sense to me.
Mhm.
You shouldn't have to work at a relationship, whether
Mhm.
it's friends or business or just cordial, for a conversation. It shouldn't feel like work. And if it
Right.
feels like work and you're pulling teeth, then you should be back away from that one and just go next. And that's okay.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Those are some very insightful words right there
Yeah.
on community and as a being going to connect with people.
Yeah.
We have enjoyed having you today, Peter. It's been a pleasure. But
It's
before you go,
my pleasure.
we would to know a couple of things. We have a couple of questions. I'm pretty sure even the audience would have questions concerning peptides
Mhm.
and what it's all about, which you mentioned earlier. But we want to understand that what is the common problem that you see people in their health having, and what things does peptides do in order to solve that problem,
Okay.
basically?
So for me, it's overall health and
Okay.
being.
Mm.
And I can wrap that up in a nutshell very quickly, is saying we can even just go to the obesity problem that we have in this country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And actually now worldwide obesity issue, right?
Right.
And that literally is a pandemic, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it starts with sugar intake,
Mm-hmm.
starts with poor eating, it starts with sedentary lifestyle. Like, these are all connected, right? Then it goes to
Right.
weight gain, then it goes to diabetes, then it goes
Mm-hmm.
to cancer. And now you're on medicine 2.0, prescriptions and medications that are treating the symptom. They're not, or you, there's no, they're treating the symptoms before they even got to it, to what the problem was, the core problem. And the
Mm-hmm.
core problem happened 20 years ago. It happened when you were drinking 30 Cokes a day and you thought you could get away with that forever because you wouldn't put any weight on. And then all of a sudden, your body's, wait a second, no, that builds up.
Right.
So we can just take the weight industry as a whole for that one. The weight loss peptides have an immediate effect on people, and it's showing in such a positive way, from people like Oprah Winfrey coming out and saying that, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Kelly Clarkson, you see all these high profile people, not just the Kardashians who did it for,
Right.
but I find that it not only helped me lose the weight, but also
Mm-hmm.
helped realize that I was depressed, when you never saw it coming until, like, I sat at the table and I was like, you know what? I'm like, I was depressed and I
Mm-hmm.
felt about myself. It's okay to feel good about yourself. Somewhere along the line, somebody told you you're not allowed to feel good about yourself because it's selfish. No, you can feel good about yourself, and you should. The peptide therapies could affect everybody positively in your life, because there's so many different ones out there for so many different needs. Like I said, even if it's getting a good night's sleep, there are peptides that help your brain to shut down the noise so
Right.
that you get into relaxed mode and get a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's all you need, is a good night's rest. The most profound, like I said, you see them all the time because they're so cognizant, or I should say, they're so right in front of us on TV. is the weight loss ones, right? So you see the Ozempic, you see the Manjaro, which is semaglutide, tirzepatide, because we do have a relationship issue with food in this country, or actually in the world. When there are people that have an issue mentally with food. So not only do the peptides help you physically, but they can actually help you mentally as
Sure.
well. I tell people, hey, listen, if you're that person, that's okay. Seek help from a health and wellness professional, a mental health coach, because there is a disease and there's a connection with food that we have that is unhealthy. Just like there's a connection with people with alcohol, there's a connection with people with smoking cigarettes, all those things. If you have that unhealthy relationship, then you should seek a professional to help you with that. The peptides can assist you in the other stuff, but at the same time, it becomes an entire group of individuals that can really help and assist us. But peptide therapies, it's going to be around for a long time. And I want the next 50 years of my life, because that's how I plan on being here plus, to be healthy and honestly, and
Mm-hmm.
the best time that
Right.
I can live in those moments, because that's what it's shown me it can do, the longevity.
And we're so happy to have peptides. I'll be honest with you, because again, once we sit down and reflect on so many things of our lives and we say, hey, we might need to change a couple of things, it's like now we're like, oh, I have something to look up to that can help me. Yes, with also me
Right.
working my what my mentor calls body, being, and mindset and
Right.
all that. Together with that, it creates a very much healthy life. So we say thank you for that as well. Basically,
Absolutely.
Peter, as I
Hey,
wrap up this episode, I'm thankful. We thank you very much for being here with us today.
thank you very much. I'm thankful as well, Bradley. And I had a great time chatting with you and look forward to doing it more.